Hi, my name's Paul Novotny, and I'm in Toronto. Wish I could be there with you, but thanks very much for taking a moment to have a look at this video. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what my work is. It's called Found in Space, and I'm going to tell you about a musicological three-tool analysis synergy that's designed to posit the substance of music's 3D spatiality. If you've got some headphones, please put them on because we're going to listen to some binaural audio. So let's go back to 2020. I just started to build a Dolby Atmos hyper near field tiny studio in my home at the beginning of the pandemic. I wrote it down, and so I've published the philosophy and benchmark for a studio that breaks all of the Dolby guidelines, and you can see a picture of it there in the lower left. And there's the response curve. Emma Brooks at Dolby had a look at that and could not believe it. The room tested out really, really well. So, in enjoying music in this room, I put together a 24-hour playlist of what I felt were the most compelling examples of Dolby Atmos music. And I realized that some sounded really great and others not so much. So I really asked myself, what is the substance of compelling spatiality in immersive 3D Dolby Atmos music recordings? And I wanted to know how we could find it. So, couldn't get any answers on those questions, so I realized I needed to design what I now call a synergy. And these are three tools to centralize concepts, vocabulary, and terminologies for the subjective analysis of music's 3D spatiality. The three tools involve a 3D concept map, which is a thesaurus-like tool for looking up the components, if you will. And I adapted it from William Moylan's 2D framework, which I call a concept map. And William, if you are watching this video, I would love to have a discussion with you about this after it all is done. You've been very influential in my work, so thank you for that. Tool number 2 is a rudimentary 5-facet typology, and it distills and organizes the percepts into practical facets. Tool number 3 are 3 brain training or ear training exercises designed to improve the perception of 3D sound. This work is intended for composers, songwriters, music producers, teachers, students, semi-professional and professional Atmos mix engineers. And it kind of rests on the genesis of a feeling that I have. Visceral sonic experience in life can metaphorically ingrain palpable 3D sonic illusion in the Dolby Atmos format. My synergy leverages cross-domain mapping of concepts, vocabulary, and terms from human anatomy, anthropology, psychoacoustics, electroacoustics, musicology, ethnomusicology, and live concert hall, club, theatrical arts. Okay? Now, what I've come to realize in all of this is that there are 3 fundamental relationships we need to know about and 2 fundamental perspectives. 3D spatial analysis frameworks are built on relationships and perspectives. And the 3 relationships are subject to object, object to subject, and object to object. There are 2 perspectives, and one is egocentric. The next one is allocentric. Now, the subject to object relationship involves an egocentric perspective. And this relationship can invert to become contralateral, and that makes an object-to-subject relationship, and it remains with an egocentric perspective. The third relationship is object-to-object, and its perspective is allocentric. So let's just review quickly. The subject is the listener. The object is the audio or musician on the stage. So when a subject is looking at the stage, they're in a subject-to-object egocentric perspective. But when it inverts, it's like we become musicians and we go up onto the stage and we're now looking out at the subject listener. So right and left basically invert because it's contralateral, but that relationship is still egocentric. The third relationship is object to object. And that would be like you're a bass player looking at a drummer on stage. if we're mixing in Dolby Atmos, to be able to conceive of those relationships is very helpful with regards to our staging. So, Dolby Atmos fixes the listener in an egocentric perspective with audio objects in 3 dimensions. I read a lot of influential literature, but I decided to work from William Moylan's 2D framework of spatial properties and attributes and variables in 3 levels of perspective. So here is what William Moylan's concept map looks like, and in italics you can see how I've infused my 5-facet typology into his organizational structure. This is what my 5-facet typology looks like on its own. Following William's lead, I basically have come up with a bunch of descriptions of substantial components, but I put a lot of thought into the ordering of the facets. Direct and indirect sound is the single most important thing that we need to brain train to understand. Then in my own analysis, I focus on the level of impact, intensity, and intelligibility. These terms come from the design of concert halls. Pitch and height is very, very important, and this basically adds air and dimension. So I like to observe what's happening with the way the sound is radiating from the standard mid-plane up into the height speakers. The spatial aggregate, that is the 4th facet, and that involves LEV, or listener envelopment. And so that is an important term. The 5th and final facet is the spatial impression of the holistic aggregate. So holistic aggregate is pretty academic, but so let's call it the full mix. But it basically leads us to examine what the apparent source width of the ensemble, the staged width, is. So let's remember ASW, apparent source width, and LEV, listener envelopment. Those are 2 very, very important things in our analysis of spatiality. Now, I'll go quickly here. The red arrows indicate how I have stayed within William Moylan's organizational structure, but what I have done is I have adapted and opened up and expanded his use of language to describe the components, characteristics, etc., for 3D. This concept map is 7 pages long, and that's why I realized after I did it, wow, I've got to distill this. And so if we go back, this is the distillation, and it houses and organizes essential percepts that can be referenced from this. Along with this, I realized the glossary was necessary, so I started coming up with terms that are specific to this, like proxal and distal, and here we have explanations for what egocentric, allocentric are, offstage, onstage, ASW, LEV, and also proxemic zones. I think Edward Hall's work from 1963 is really, really important in this. All of this led to a reimagination of the metaphor of a soundbox that is in the Dolby Atmos renderer. And so I would actually suggest that for music mixers, this view in the Dolby Atmos renderer, and this would be great for students when you're teaching how to basically understand the possibilities of 3-dimensional spatial orchestration. This is a good way to introduce the language and the concepts. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but you can see that this is an overview of all of that. So I think now it's time to ear and brain train. So I want you to close your eyes. I'm going to reach over here and I'm going to get my headphones. There we go. Okay. I've got 3 ear training examples for you. This first one is the holistic aggregate, and it is Morton Lindbergh's channel identification file. Now, I believe that what Morton did is he probably stood on some sort of a step ladder and talked directly into each microphone in a 7.4 array. This is what I would call native Atmos recording. And so this is brilliant because we get to hear his direct sound in close proximity to the microphone, but also how the sound of his voice radiates naturally around the entire sphere in this space. Let's have a listen.
This is left front. This is right front. This is center. This is left surround. This is right surround. This is left rear. This is right rear. This is front left height. This is front right height. This is rear left height. This is rear right height.
Okay, I hope that you were able to localize and get a sense of the perception of the space. Even imagine the architecture, the ethnography, whatever, based on your own experiences in life from being in church sanctuaries or concert performance halls. Now, let's eliminate the direct sound and just listen to the spatiality. What I want you to notice is that location is not nearly as accurate. Location depends on direct sound, but envelopment is what we're going to hear now.
This is left front. This is right front. This is center. This is left surround. This is right surround. This is left rear. This is right rear. This is front left height. This is front right height. This is rear left height. This is rear right height.
Okay, very similar to being in a church sanctuary and there's somebody speaking on the other side of the church in a very sort of public distance. But now, let's just listen to the direct sound and try to pay attention to the radiosity, which is there's still going to be a little bit of nature from the space in this single channel sound. It's going to be predominantly direct sound, but the radiosity, that's a term that describes the delta or difference between the nature and the denatured sound or direct audio.
This is left front. This is right front. This is center. This is left surround. This is right surround. This is left rear. This is right rear. This is front left height. This is front right height. This is rear left height. This is rear right height.
Okay, now we're ready to listen to some music. This was my test mule. As I was coming up with this synergy, I was testing the actual concepts and playing with it in a mix so that it's not just academic. There's a practical side to it. So let's have a listen. Close your eyes. So what I was trying to do was apply these concepts in a musicological way, thinking about persona, thinking about perspective or proxemics, relationships with the subjective listener, and basically, intelligibility, all these things that are in the five-facet typology serve to help me get a better mix. Now, I have analyzed about 10 songs using this synergy, and we're going to listen to one of my first analysis experiments, and I call this, scope number 1. And my analysis involves all 5 facets. It's just one way to look at it, but this particular piece has an excellent example of rotation. Let's have a listen. All right, so you can see that I've got facets 1, 2, and 3. I've extracted language from the concept map and actually descriptors from within the typology. And there's more descriptions, and you can see I'm discussing subject listener, how it's proximally located to the theatrical proscenium, which is imaginary, if you will. But this is just an example of how this system can work. Now, we've only got, looks like about 30 seconds left. So I'm just going to spin down and give you an overview of a few things. I'm just spinning down here. This. Well, that's good too. Discovering the musicological substance of 3D spatiality in music encoded for the Dolby Atmos format. It does require a new synergistic analysis system. I've discovered that there are kind of 2 primary types of analysis. They're both perceived subjectively. So we're looking for spatial properties, which articulate the objective grammar of the spatial orchestration. And spatial attributes help us to interpret the meaning of the song or song meaning. So theoretically, by combining experiential cognitive image schemata, proxemics, pre-existing spatial analysis frameworks, we can map concepts, vocabulary and terms and relationships and perspectives across domains to ingrain palpable illusions of spatiality in 3D music. So this is a synergistic way for practitioners, composers, songwriters, mixing engineers, and pedagogues to understand, practice, and communicate about the substance of 3D spatiality in Dolby Atmos encoded music. And that's what I've got for you today. Thanks for watching.